Restore name of King Taki Adamah Latse'S II to National Register of Chiefs Courts. This page 18 of Ghanaian Times. And says the Fast Track High Court Kumasi has ordered the National House of Chiefs to re-enter the name of King Taki Adamah Latse'S II in the National Register of Chiefs as the Gamanche Paramount Chief of the Ghana State. The court, presided over by Mr. Justice Frederick Tete, gave the National House of Chiefs 14 days beginning November 11, 2021, within which the order must be carried out. The judgment on Thursday was in response to an application seeking for the reinstatement of the name expunged from the register. It follows an earlier court ruling granting that George Taki Abia or Ne Taki Adamah II be prohibited from performing his duties as king until an appropriate body or institution determine who was the legitimate occupant of the Gamanche stool. The court ruling in favor of Ne Taki Adamah Latse'S II, ordering the National House of Chiefs to restore the name into the National Register of Chiefs, awarded him 25,000 Ghana cedis as compensation for the actions of the respondent. According to the court ruling, the National House of Chiefs unlawfully and unjustifiably acted ultra vires, expunging the name of Ne Taki Adamah II, applicant, from the National Register of Chiefs. In a ruling, the High Court held that the National House of Chiefs respondent unlawful and unjustifiable deletion or expunging of the name of the applicant herein was arbitrary and prejudicial. It further contended that the refusal and or failure of the respondent to re-enter the name of the applicant herein in the National Register of Chiefs as being against the principle of natural justice. Concerning the latter court case, there was a contention between George Taki Abia and one Dr. Kevin Abia Taki over the stool. The two claimants were part of two other persons presented to be vetted and elected for instrument in accordance with the customs, traditions, conventions, and usages of the Ghana State in 2011. After the death of late Nebon Niamugi in 2004 and his burial in 2007, George Taki Abia was elected and stood as Ne Taki Adamah Latse'S II, the successor to the late Amugi, according to Abola Piamwe royal family, one of the four ruling houses of the Ghana State. On April 24, 2015, his name was entered into the National Register of Chiefs as a Gamanche Paramount Chief, and he has remained so, residing in the Gamanche Palace until 2017, said Ni Otoga, the Gajaseche principal kingmaker. The Gamanche was the same year alleged to have been removed from the Ghana Royal Stoolhouse by some police and soldiers from the Regional Security Council, who locked up the palace and installed Dr. Kelvin Ne Taki Abia as new Gamanche. This created a protracted dispute between the two factions, necessitating the setting up of a 17-member fact-finding committee chaired by Justice Mrs. Juliana Yale Sarkodie Mensah, who replaced late Justice Richard Atta-Crab. Their task was to inquire into events surrounding the chieftaincy dispute and to make recommendations. On May 9, 2020, Dr. Kelvin Taki Abia, now Ne Taki Teku II, was inducted into office and as the president of the Ghana Traditional Council under heavy security. The Jaseche pronounced him legitimate occupant. Meanwhile, Ne Taki Adamah Latse'S II was elected by the Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs as one of the 5 reps at the National House of Chiefs. His induction into the National House of Chiefs was expected to take place on November 12, 2020, following his installment as Paramount Chief in 2015. However, an application of prohibition was filed against him 2 days earlier, which the Kumasi High Court granted. He was restrained from holding himself as Gamanche until an appropriate body or institution determined who was the legitimate occupant of the stool before his induction into the House. So the National House of Chiefs, based on a court ruling, conferred among themselves and did what the court says was arbitrary and prejudicial.
In fact, Randy, I have with me a copy of the 18-page ruling. And let me just read something here. Therefore, it is unfortunate, to say the least, if not contemptuous, the act of expulsion by the respondent of the applicant's name from the Register of Chiefs in the light of an existing ruling of the High Court, Kumasi. So even the act of removing Ne Adamah Latse'S name from the National Register of Chiefs, the High Court judge even considers that contemptuous. I mean, why are we doing this to ourselves? And look at the comment the High Court judge made about the conduct of the National House of Chiefs relative to this particular matters. And this is what it says. In view of the above description by Justice Olenu, it behoves the respondent herein, being the principal actor in chieftaincy institution, to ensure that it conducts its activities in such a way that it does not bring its name into disrepute. I mean, why are we doing this? And all of this is as a result of political interference. we can avoid this drama.
And the use of the security.
The state security.
In doing these things.
And you see, and I've always maintained, there's a whole chapter of our constitution dedicated to the institution of chieftaincy. It's for good reason. We must avoid the use of state security in fomenting trouble within our chieftaincy institution. And I'll plead with Nananom and Tobios within the National House of Chiefs that they must rise above this. The politicians go and come, but you will stay there. Show we the politician that you can stand up. I mean, what is this?
So
yes,
and Randy, just you see, now that there's a chief, one Mantse, now this one too, the High Court has ordered that his name should be restored. What happens?
So now it's basically like a whole traditional system versus a legal system, right? Because I mean, once it's gone to the High Court and a pronouncement has been made, I think that we probably will not hear the end of this, because then they would have to exhaust everything to the letter. I foresee this thing going all the way to the Supreme Court. I tend to agree with him on the basis of interference, and I think that I mean, across board, it's something that all politicians to eschew. I don't see where the House of Chiefs have been influenced by a politician in this particular matter. But I feel that as a general rule, the chieftaincy institution and its benefits and impact is something that nobody can actually underestimate. I mean, I come from a family like that. Now, we say this because sometimes, because we live in Accra and all that, we don't really have a true appreciation of how important it is. In certain places, the chief is the government, is the police, is the judge, is everything. Is the resolve disputes that probably would have even be more, if like, negative to our development. So I think that it needs to be respected. It needs to be protected. Everybody within that particular space, our stakeholders and all that, should respect that. And you see, every time we are talking about economy, we even forget about our culture. And, you know, and the culture is significant, and some countries have used their culture, right, as a basis for generating huge sums of money in terms of tourism and all that. I've seen people come.
The Chinese have their annual lunar or something.
People
and the number of people
travel
that go there
to this country just to observe funerals. I mean, you think that a funeral is such a stark event that nobody would actually want to, but people, so we have a rich culture. You can't take away our chieftaincy institutions from that, and I think that needs to be protected.
All right, okay, well, it's time to go back